How's it going, guys? Welcome to week 5 of my off-season plan, and we're going to run through all days of my training week. So we start things off with the Penlay rows. The aim for the next couple of weeks in particular, I won't necessarily to kind of finish off where I last started, but to be in a position where I can still work through a decent amount of weights and not miss any repetitions. And then be able to kind of finish off my last week heavier than the week prior to my deload. So this was 85 or 75 kilos actually, 2 sets, 15 reps. And in the end, I was happy to get this weight. I've done 70 before. I ended last week on, I think it was 90 or 100 kilos. So the aim was, yeah, like I said, to kind of almost be a week ahead of my previous week to then look to build up to hopefully now finish this week off with some decent personal bests. Then we move over to the reverse grip Larsen press. So on this one, this was I think 70 kilos for, or 75 kilos again. Yeah, 75 kilos for a set of 15. And this felt a lot more comfortable and easier than the rows. I just find that sometimes as I'm going through the repetitions, I try to keep my pace because I then start to feel a bit unstable. So as you can see here, finish off the pause, just got to stay tight and get the reps in. Then we move over to day 2. Now this was a day where I actually ended up doing the wrong session. In my head, I don't know why, I just thought I had to squat first. So I ended up doing what would have been or should have been day 4. But actually now, this was day 2. So this was the Zercher squat. I believe this was a set of 110 kilos for 12 reps. And I was actually quite surprised with how easy this felt. Um, Generally, my back squats, I usually start feeling more of a challenge, anything beyond like 200 or even 180 kilos sometimes. But so to be working within the 100 kilo, to be fair, is not much of a challenge for me. The biggest challenge when I do this as in the Zercher squat is holding the bar. It's just puts so much pressure going through the upper back and core. So I'm very intrigued to see how much this will carry over to when I then start back squatting. Then we move over to RDLs. I believe this was also, no, this was 100 kilos for a set of 12. And this was fine. The main aim here, again, is just trying to keep as much of a neutral spine as possible. Maybe slightly extended as well, just so I can get a deeper stretch in the hamstrings as I go down and then really drive the hips through as I come up, keeping that back nice and tight as well. And this was a set of 10, 2 sets of 10. I think it was 80 kilos or 90 kilos and 100 kilos. And again, like everything that you see me do here, yes, I am training quite far away from failure. But again, the aim is to linear progress the movement as time goes by. So hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll be looking to again do close enough or at least the personal best. Then we go over to day 3, and this was the incline bench press. So I kind of went into this really just trying to motivate myself mentally, really get into the zone because the set prior to this actually felt a bit more difficult. So I was just a little bit like, nah, I still want to keep the standard up and push myself. So I think this was a set of 75 kilos and this was a set of 15. First few reps was fine. Even as I got to about 8 reps was fine. I got to 10 and that was good. Usually with this movement, I always notice I slow down massively close to lockout. Like off the chest, I'm really, really quick. But then once I get close to lockout, that's when the bar slows down. So I was really just making sure I'm fighting through that sticking point as quick as I can. Even there, the little pause there, and I managed to get through it. So that was fine. So I know next week I can definitely do a little bit more. In the same session, we then moved on to the seated shoulder press. And I remember when I first introduced this in the start of season, moving after my incline press, when I then did the seated barbell shoulder press, honestly, I only had just enough to do the bar. And even then, because I was so fatigued from the incline bench press, doing this was so much more harder. So I'm actually quite relieved to still be able to move. I don't want to say decent weight because we put this on the internet, we find that there's a 12-year-old that's probably pressing 100 kilos for 50 reps. somewhere in a dark cave. So doing 35 for me was rather impressive for myself. So I'll give myself credit where it is due. Then we move on to day 4. This was my deadlift day, the day that I should have done on day 2. And we start things off with the safety squat bar, 1.5 squats, SSB. And this particular bar felt really good. Like, I was quite worried that the handles were very wide. However, the padding, it just allows the bar to sit right on top of the shoulders. And it was interesting because I could kind of almost get my elbows away from my thighs a lot easier than previous safety bars that I've used in the past. And the aim here when we're doing the 1.5 squat is to try and keep my knees as far forward so I can really target my quads here. And this has been rather a really helpful tool to drill that cue when I squat, because generally when you squat low bar, because the bar's lower on your back, you generally have more of a tendency to lean forward, and therefore the hips will be more kind of used when you're getting out of the hole, so the knees will shift back towards the hips because you're keeping that slightly lean torso. And I try to counter that as much as possible because we still want our quads to work hard at the bottom of the position. And essentially the only way we're going to get there is if we keep those knees moving forward over the toes, so we could utilize our quads more and therefore actually keep our hips in a better position to get underneath us, as opposed to it starting further behind to then go underneath the body. So you see here on all sets, my main aim once I go into the hole and then back out when I go into that 1.5 rep is to actually keep my knees as far forward as I can and not be in a position where my knees shift back and then forward and then shift back again. So I reckon I did a really good enough job. No, I did a really good job. 100 kilos, 5 sets of 3 in an EMOM fashion, so on the minute, every minute. Then we finish off with the deadlifts. On this, annoyingly, I forgot my lifting strap, so I had to actually grab onto the bar, which was fine. To be fair, it was only 140 kilos for a set of 10. But you'll see near the end, like my grip slowly starts to go. I had no chalk, but it is what it is. Again, just trying to keep that form as clean as possible in each and every single rep. Another big thing that's very underrated when we deadlift is that you want to keep your arms as long as possible, especially if you're more of a touch and go type of lifter. Reach to the floor and then push away with the legs. Avoid over relying on that bounce on the ground and using that momentum to stand up. So there you have it, guys. Week 5 onwards and upwards to week 6. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.